So good afternoon and welcome to the fourth of what I hope will be annual I Will Listen event. I'm Monica Ziegel. I'm the Hope for All coordinator, which means that I'm the mental health advocate for wellness services under prevention, outreach, and education. My mission is to get people talking openly about mental health, raising awareness and utilization of all the resources that we have available to us, and working to improve resilience on campus and in the community. I'm not sure when or why mental illness became this dirty little secret that we don't talk about, but it is an illness, just as diabetes is an illness, and if it's left untreated, it can kill. Mental health has a direct effect on student health. Students with good mental health or who take an active role in improving their mental health have better grades and are more likely to remain in school and graduate. Students with poor mental health or untreated mental illness have lower grades, are more likely to drop out of school, and have higher instances of substance abuse. Additionally, employers who prioritize employee mental health and provide mental health resources have happier, more productive employees who are more likely to stay with their company. I myself have been dealing with depression and anxiety for about 15 years. I think this position probably saved my life. I'm married to a Gulf War veteran with PTSD. My own daughter struggles with depression and anxiety. All three of us take medication, see a counselor. My wish is that all people with mental illness, whether you're struggling or well, will be accepted, respected, and fairly treated. It's time for individual and social change that recognizes our humanity. We are capable of recovery. We can and should have full and meaningful lives. Personally, my depression always gets worse in the winter, and shortly before I got this job, and I don't think I even told him this, but I was considering suicide. I didn't feel my life had any direction or meaning other than raising my kids, and they were quickly getting to the age where they didn't need me so much. At least that's what I was thinking. I was very unhappy in the job that I had at the time, and all I wanted to do was sleep. So this job opened up, thankfully, and I saw a light at the end of the tunnel. I knew that I could help others, and I made that choice to utilize my own struggles as a source of strength to share. I began really diving into research on mental illness and ways to help yourself, and I found a number of ways I and everyone else could work on ourselves to improve. I see a therapist. Therapists are amazing, but even they will tell you that you need to do some of your own self-work, self-care. Around 50% of your mental health is genetic, 10% is situational, and 40% is controlled by you. It's within your control. So that's pretty amazing statistic. If we could raise our grades by 40%, we'd all have some great GPAs. If I could raise my salary by 40%, where's Dr. Baker, right? Let's see if that could happen. So why wouldn't you want to take some control of your mental health and do some self-care and improve your own level of happiness by 40%? The brain is a muscle and you can train it. I want you guys to know that we have counselors here. If anything that is said or that you see maybe in the art room is possibly triggering, we have Haston and Courtney back over here. We have the Tower View room reserved if you just need to go take a minute. We have snacks, drinks, and then out in the hallway and to the left and another left are the restrooms if you need them. We're going to take a break at some point in here so that you guys can maybe go look at the artwork, do some yoga or meditation. So I need to stop talking. And my first speaker is Kristen Peltz. She's the Assistant Director of Wellness Services over counseling. She's a very amazing and caring person and always puts the well-being of her employees and peers first. Kristen received both her undergraduate degree in psychology and sociology and her master's of science in counseling psychology from Northwest. She's a licensed professional counselor. Kristen's therapy interests are in supporting others as they experience challenges in the areas of relationship dynamics, LGBTQ+, anxiety, depression, and personal growth. So, Kristen, you want to come up?
see everybody, especially when we're here to talk about this topic, right? So, I will listen. I love the campaign. I love what it tells us. This idea, can everybody hear me? If I like to step away. Okay. The idea that people are here. We don't have to struggle on our own. We also have to remember, right, that just reaching out can make all the difference in the world. So, what I want to focus on, and we're going to keep this a little bit brief, but the things we say about mental health and how it interferes. Okay, so as I go through these, I want just a show of hands if you've heard this from anybody, all right? Then we're going to talk about it. So, it will mean I'm weak, right? So if I go to counseling, if I share with a friend, if I talk with my romantic partner, if I go to my parents or family, right? Then it's going to mean that I'm weak. But I want people to understand, think about how we're hardwired, right? We've all heard of the fight, flight, freeze response, right? Hardwired, that's a part of what we do. So we learned that in order to save ourselves and protect ourselves, we had to do one of these three things. So when you think about stopping, reflecting, sharing what's going on, when we're hardwired to run or to fight, this shows courage. It shows an incredible amount of courage. And so to let people know, it's not about weakness at all. It's about that strength and that recognition that I can have my life be different, and I want to do something about that, okay? It's not that big a deal. How many of you heard that one? Okay. Other people have it worse, right? This isn't a big thing. I know that time will pass and it's going to be better. The thing that we don't always recognize, though, is we'll hear this in therapy, right? I don't want to take somebody else's spot, right? Because it's not that big a deal for me, right? I'm going to be okay. But the recognition that we have to take that responsibility, as Monica said, 40%. 40% means that we can learn how to make those adjustments, right? That we can say, I want things to be different, and learn how to do them differently. So that idea of it's not a big deal, if it's interfering with quality of life, if you find yourself not enjoying things the way you used to or avoiding things that you didn't used to, this idea of it's starting to interfere with my day-to-day, maybe it's time to look at it. And again, if that's coming to a counselor, wonderful. If it's talking to someone else, great too. Anyone hear this? This is just who I am, right? That one of my favorites, I'm just like my dad. I'm told that all the time. Or in my family, we're all worriers, right? And so this idea of this is just who I am, again, as Monica said, 50% we're looking at genetics. However, if it's interfering, again, with quality of life, is this who I want to stay? If I say, I'm angry, that's just who I am. But is this how I want to be? I don't want to be a burden. Heard that? Okay. So this idea, and think about the semantics of this. First of all, I don't want to be the burden. And that, the reality of that is, no, not the person. The person is never a burden, right? When we go to someone we care about, and we go to someone when we're trying to make improvements and changes in our lives, it's not about the I. I think sometimes the concern is my problems, what's going on with me, right? I don't want to set that on somebody else. But the idea is, when we go to talk with someone, we don't go with the notion that they're going to fix it, that they're going to make sure that we're okay. We go to them because that's how we process through things. And that's how we're real with each other, by saying, this is what's going on with me. I tried counseling once and it didn't work. Right? So we hear that. The thought that always comes to mind was, well, I ate vegetables once too, and I'm not sure it made a difference, right? It's like, oh gosh, as my dietitian students are sitting up here, right? That counseling isn't about I go in one time, somebody fixes me, and then we're good. That's not what counseling is. Counseling is about that opportunity, again, to find that safe place and to do the processing that we need to do to work through, right? Counseling is for people who are crazy, right? Yeah. There's some of us that have heard like almost all of these, right? Couldn't be further from the truth. Like we talked about earlier, the courage that it takes to go in and to be vulnerable with someone. Again, if it's the counselor, wonderful. If it's someone else. But this idea of, and I think the media sometimes perpetuates this, right? This idea that people with mental health difficulties, that they're violent, and again, that they're crazy, that they're unpredictable. And that's not the case. That's not the case. Actually, people that deal with mental illness much less likely to be violent than those who aren't. And when there is some that occurs, it's directed towards self, not towards others. It's too hard to change, right? That kind of goes back to that. This is who I am. This is how I've always been. One of the things that I always think about as I'm sitting with a student is this idea, if it's too hard to change. And my perspective is, what you're doing right now is hard. This is hard. Now, learning to do it differently, that can be uncomfortable. It's unfamiliar. We don't always know how to do it. But when you think about it being too hard to change, that difficulty is in living with the challenges day after day, and resigning ourselves that that's the place that we're at. Now, this is when someone comes to us, right? So that part of I will listen. How do you be a support person? I might say the wrong thing. So if someone comes to me and I can't, what if I can't think of what to say? What if I give them bad advice? But the idea is holding the space for someone. That's what it's about. We aren't there to fix it for people. We aren't there to make sure they're better. Our responsibility to that friend or family member is to hold that space. I always visualize a circle. So you have this circle. Our role, again, in whatever relationship that is to show up to the very best of our ability and hold that space. And we hold that space so the other person can show up then as well, right? So think about that circle. What happens when we start encroaching on that other half? What happens to that space for the person, right? They get like smushed up in there. That's not what it is we want to do. We don't want to take control or charge or responsibility for their life. We want to hold that space so they can come, they can have the conversations, they can process, they can hear themselves out loud, right? Another thing that's always really helpful to ask is, do you want support? Do you want to vent? Or are you looking for some input? How many times have you had a conversation, gone home and said, oh gosh, this thing happened today at work, or this thing happened in class, and oh my gosh. And you start talking about it, and the other person says, well, this is what you need to do, right? This is what you need to say. This is how you need to handle it next time. But the reality is, sometimes it's just venting. If someone can say, yeah, that sounds like that was a challenge. That sounds like that was difficult. That's what we do with the people that we care about. We hold that space. And that's not about what we say. It's about being present, showing up. And the idea that there's nothing that I can do to help. Like, who am I, right? Who am I to make that difference in someone's life? What we hear in a counseling setting repeatedly is the importance of the relationships in people's lives, right? Sometimes that's a good friend. Sometimes that's an advisor. Sometimes it's someone at student affairs. There's a connection. There's a connection, and that connection sometimes is the thing that keeps us going. It's the thing that shines, right, when it feels like things are dark. So the idea, there's nothing I can do to help. Again, being present, showing up to the best of our ability, that's what helping looks like. So questions, comments? Well, thank you, and everyone enjoy your afternoon.
Okay, so as part of the grant that funded my position, we commissioned a piece of artwork to signify Northwest's commitment to mental wellness. We originally had a piece that was being created by senior art students a year ago, and then we all know what happened, and then they graduated. And fortunately for us, Elizabeth Herrick, a student who is a senior art and psychology major and plans to work in art therapy, decided her senior project would combine her love of art and psychology. She's unable to be here today, but has provided us a video explaining her artistic contribution, and I will play that
now. I'm Elizabeth Herrick, and I want to start this by saying that I'm honored to have both the opportunity to create a community sculpture for Northwest Missouri State University, but also the opportunity to be speaking to you guys regarding the project. I am a senior art education major with a psychology minor, gearing up for graduate school next year. I want to apologize for not being there in person to give this speech, but I'm doing my student teaching during the time of the presentation. But I'm also going to apologize for some of the background noises that you may hear during the speech, because I am in a house. So, the piece itself is supposed to represent a psychological phenomenon of in-group heterogeneity and out-group homogeneity. This is a psychological phenomenon that we all experience when engaging in social interactions. The piece is created to promote both a conversation, to develop a greater understanding regarding how minority groups experience many negative stereotypes, biases, and prejudices. Though minority communities experience strong adversity, their internal relationships help uplift each other to achieve ascension from labels that they've received. I've developed a strong desire for this representation regarding oppressed individuals in light of the summer of 2020, especially with the George Floyd protests. The sculpture aesthetically is composed of 125 to 150 hands and forearms. The composition is a spiral shape that replicates almost a sculptural garden that you're supposed to interact with and walk around. The piece is going to be large enough for you to walk through it as well comfortably. I want the viewer to see it from afar, being very similar with very little defined form compared to the others. But when the viewer engages with the piece close and walks through it, they begin to discover a very diverse change in height between arms, hand gesture, gender of hand, and color. The color will range from a warm rust color to a cooler espresso brown. I've casted both female male model's hand and forearm to reproduce each gesture roughly 8 to 9 times, so I'll be recasting each form 8 to 9 times. I am displaying some of the concept art via PowerPoint towards the end of this to be able to show a visualization of the process and what the final product will kind of look like. Hopefully, I will bring a sense of belongingness to Northwest for all students. I found Northwest to be my dream school, and I believe that giving this representation will promote the same feeling for future alumni. So we're going to start displaying some of the work. Share screen, PowerPoint, and then, okay. So this is actually some of the initial sketch work that has to do with the idea of composition and the layout that it would be going. I changed my idea from going from highest outside to shortest inside to highest inside to shortest outside, because I wanted to go, instead of doing dissension and kind of being brought down, I wanted it to be uplifting and positive. And then there's many different forms of hands. So there's number 1, there's like a K-pop heart symbol, there's peace, power, and then there's high five, pinky promise. There's various hand signals that are universally known that I wanted to represent and bring in that were positive. There's plenty of universal hand sign language that isn't quite as positive that I was given recommendations to make, and I decided against it because I didn't think it fit the idea very well, funny enough. This is actually a representation. It's a maquette, which is a model of what the project will look like. So the center is highest point and it's the most clustered, and then it goes lower and becomes more spaced out. And this is a side view of what it will look like. So you can see the variation in height and the forms. And this is my production. So this is actually silicone casting of plaster hands that I made from wax castings. So I laid wax on hands, cut the wax off, and then I poured plaster, and now I'm putting silicone on it to be able to reproduce it into cement like this. And then I will continuously recreate these about 8 to 9 times. This is kind of what it looks like in the process of it. It looks a little bit like a mess, and the studio is very messy, but it's a very fun process, and hopefully it will create a very fun piece. And this is more studio space. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and hopefully if you guys have questions, someone can reach out to me and I can answer them via email, or I can set up another time to talk. Thank you. Okay. What?
Okay, that was pretty awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing that on campus. I don't know yet exactly where it's going to be set up, but when I find out, I'll definitely put it out on social media and everything else so you guys can take a look at it. Nutrition has a profound effect on brain health. Ashley Dow and Elizabeth Reeve are two dietetics, right? Students at Northwest who are passionate about nutrition and how being mindful of what we put in our bodies can help us lead better lives. So Ashley and Elizabeth, if you want to come on up.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Ashlyn Dow.
And I'm Elizabeth Reeve.
And we're both Northwest Senior Dietetics students here at Northwest. And today we're going to talk about how your food affects your mental health. And this is important because May is coming up, and that is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we just want to give you guys some tips and some information on how nutrition can impact your mental health overall.
Okay, to get started, do any of you know someone who suffers from mental health? Like, anything, raise your hand. Yes, all of us do. And just think to yourself, like, what actions do they take to help with their symptoms? It could be counseling, medication. A lot of us don't really think about food, do we?
So for our presentation today, we're going to talk about a little bit about the brain and how it, just like some general anatomy of it. And then we're also going to go over some of the common mental disorders that we see in people. And then we're also going to go over omega-3s and how this is also really important in our diets. And then we're also going to talk about physical activity.
So why does this matter to you? We're here to spread awareness because not a lot of people know that omega-3s are very important in your diet. And we kind of want to challenge you to take action to either incorporate more omega-3s into your diet or to even go further and tell people about it. Because like I said, not that many people know.
So to start off, we're just going to talk a little bit about the brain. It's a really complex organ. It pretty much controls everything about you. It controls your movement, your thoughts, your feelings. And the brain approximately weighs around 3 pounds. And mainly what's made up of the brain is fats. There's around 80% of fat that makes up the brain. And your brain is actually divided into different lobes, we have your frontal lobe, which is going to control some of your cognitive functions. And then we have your parietal lobe, which is going to control your movement. Your occipital lobe controls your vision, and your temporal lobe controls your thoughts. And then your brain is also made up of brain cells called neurons, and this is how your brain communicates with other parts of your body.
Okay, so next we will talk about some common mental health disorders like depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, and dementia. Depression, it negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and the way you act. Bipolar disorder is unusual shift in moods, energy, activity levels, concentration, and ability to carry out day-to-day tasks. Anxiety is excessive nervousness, fear, apprehension, and worry. Dementia is loss of memory, language, problem solving, and other thinking abilities. And dementia mainly affects people over the age of 65, but the likelihood of developing dementia increases with age.
So now we're going to get into some nutrition. So there's a lot of things you can do nutritionally that impacts your mental health, but the main nutrient we really want to focus on is omega-3 fatty acids. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that in this presentation. So, so food is composed of 3 different essential fatty acids, and this is your EPA and DHA and also ALA. But your EPA and DHA is going to come from your meat sources in food, and these two prevent inflammatory diseases, and it's also needed for your brain function. And then your ALA, this inhibits your inflammatory processes also and is a precursor for EPA and DHA, meaning that ALA can convert into those 2 amino acids in the body. And the recommendations for EPA and DHA is 250 to 500 milligrams a day. And then for ALA, the daily recommendation is 1.1 grams per day for women and 1.6 grams per day for men. And if you find yourself having any deficiencies in these, it will impact your learning, it will cause memory loss, and it will cause a decrease in brain size, which makes it more likely to develop a mental health disorder.
Next, going into sources and supplements. So the main sources of omega-3s are your fatty fish like salmon, tuna, sardines, and mackerel. There are also nuts and seeds like flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts. There are plant oils with flax seeds, soybean oil, and canola oil. And they're also found in some fortified foods, so fortified eggs, margarine, milk, juice, soy milk, and yogurt. And with supplements, you always want to make sure to check the label before you purchase it. So the label to look for, which is one of the most popular ones, is the USP label. And we listed some common omega-3 supplements, omega-3s, and cod liver oil. And like Ashlyn said, most health organizations recommend 250 to 500 milligrams. So you always want to check the label to make sure that it includes DHA and EPA on those supplements. And you always want to consult your physician before you start taking a new supplement.
So next we wanted to talk a little bit about physical activity, just because physical activity and nutrition go hand in hand with each other. So studies have shown that aerobic exercise reduces anxiety and depression. This is due to an increase in blood circulation to the brain, and this blood circulation activates a part of the brain called HPA. And the HPA part of your brain, this controls the mood that you're in, how much motivation you have, your stress levels, and your memory. And if you know someone that doesn't go to the gym consistently, or maybe doesn't, want to go to the gym for many reasons, they can just start off by going for a walk 30 minutes a day. It's just a quick way to get outside, and it can really impact you. But the American Heart Association does recommend that you get at least 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity a week. And so we put this question up, just what ways can you include more omega-3s in your diet? I just think this is something to take away from this presentation, and hopefully you guys have learned something from it.
And just to sum up what we talked about the brain, the different parts of it, some mental disorders like bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression, and we talked about the sources and supplements of omega-3s and physical activity and how that can be important as well. Thank you guys for letting us present to you, and do any of you have any questions? Our department is on the 3rd floor of the admin building, so if any of you guys ever want to stop in and if you have any questions about nutrition, we'll be there. And we also have a feedback questionnaire. If you guys can just pull up on your phone, answer a few quick questions. We also have it in the back by our handout, if you guys can fill that out
I think
for
if
us.
you guys just pull up your phones and go to the camera roll and hover over this image, it should pop up for you. But yeah. And that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. And thanks for talking about exercise, because that's definitely that's my big one. If I don't get my exercise in, I am not going to be very fun to be around. Okay, so men's mental health is often an even more taboo topic than mental health in generally. Men are always expected to be the strong ones, and that seems to be almost universal throughout different cultures, is the men are the strong ones. Then additionally, we have the cultural differences in how marginalized groups approach mental health. And it's important that we understand these so we can more effectively treat it. On top of that, Anthony Williams is a lieutenant with University Police Department. Locally, nationally, internationally, more attention is being given to how police handle people with mental health issues. And so, please welcome Anthony Williams.
Sorry, I don't have a presentation, so they're just going to have to look at me, I guess. That was a joke. You guys can laugh. Wake up a little bit. All right, thank you. Yeah, so really quickly, I just kind of want to start off, before talking about, kind of the police side, but just kind of talking about the side of, being a male, and then two, being a black male. And so right now we're, kind of ignoring the fact that I have this uniform on. Because, there's other aspects that, we have to go through. Just kind of how Monica mentioned, you have that stigma of, of being a male, right? We all grew up and we have that stigma that, hey, you have to be tough. Kind of just the same thing that Kristen talked about in her PowerPoint. We have these things that we have to shy away from because, it's kind of the thing that you grow up in a household and you got to be there. You got to be the man of the house. Your dad leaves and say, hey, you're the man of the house. Imagine being told that when you're 2 years old, 3 years old, and you think, oh, I just stepped up into a new role. Well, I can't whine, I can't cry, I can't do this because I have this. And now in my standpoint, add another level to it of being black, to where, where I grew up, it may be a cultural thing, maybe a thing of, just where you grew up, or you just don't have a father figure in your life, and so you have other aspects to where you have to really grow fast. And there may be other things that, maybe it's your judge so quickly and so easily from a young age, whether it's because of what you look like, what you dress like, what your hair is like, what color you wear, and then you go back home in your neighborhood and you can be judged that same way by the same people that look like you because of the same things. What your hair looks like, what you dress like. You don't have the latest shoes, you don't have the latest gear, you're not smart enough, you're not getting the good grades. And so when you start to get older and you start to grow, you don't understand, who it is that you can't reach out to because you're getting facets you're getting everything from all facets of life. And, that kind of bends your pride a little bit as you get older because you have nobody that you can reach out to. And so that stigma of, I can't share feelings, or I can't be this person, or I can't be that. I can't be myself around others. It's one of those things that, you know, I hold dear to heart, and that I try to break down myself. And it really doesn't surprise me much that I don't see much of my black males in here because of that reason there. Because of that reason that they're nervous. They can't share that. They can't. My girlfriend yells at me all the time because I'm a whatever, I'm a sure, I'm a okay, I'm all right. Those are my words. You don't get too much of, yes or no or direct answer. It's all those reasons. It's all those small things, because that's how I share my feelings, and that's what I feel like is a direct answer, but it may not be a direct answer to somebody who's, come from a different type of life or a different walk of life, And so going into the police side of things, those are things that I try to keep in my mind, that I try to direct, and that I try to, spill to, officers, and when I teach it to those young officers that come into our department, is those biases that may have plagued us when we're coming to the profession, or those biases that we may have plagued in our home, and I'm not even say plague, because sometimes, biases are that's something that we all have, but sometimes they can affect us, right? And so we try to take those initiatives, and we try to take those things, and we try to let them know that, hey, these are what you have. This is what you're holding to yourself as far as your biases and things that you need to know, because this is what helps us do our job, whether it's a safety side or it's just knowing that, and knowing that we can't instill that in everybody that we come across. We have to be impartial, if anything. It's that part of that procedural justice and the way we do our job in the criminal system. I have several members here from the Judicial Task Force, 4th Circuit. You guys want to raise your hand really quickly? We're sitting on a task force here to help, with mental health and criminal justice and the criminal justice system, specifically mental health. We just received a $50,000 grant to help us, law enforcement specifically, when it comes to those late night evening calls, so we have somebody that we can call to get that person help. We're trying to keep people out of jails, try to keep people out of prison, because the prison system's getting, it's getting overwhelmed. Major Wedlock, he just was a part of an initiative. They just got a actual counselor that can come into the jail system to help and, help those individuals that are there. And so just briefly talk a little bit about, some of the things that we do in-house here at UPD as your local police department, as your, here on campus, as your number one go-to people. One thing is we require all our officers to have CIT training, crisis intervention training. It's one of the highest well-known mental health trainings that they have. It's internationally known. I actually am the chair of the regional board here. I sit on it also Major Wedlock, Joy Heaston with Mosaic. And it's one of those things that you can tell when the officers get there, it's always one of those things that it's voluntold to go to, right? Nobody wants to be there, nobody wants to talk about feelings. It's a 40-hour training, you're there all day, and it's like, oh, I want to be there. But I guarantee you after it's done, everybody takes something from it. Because it's one of those things that we don't want to say it's a softer side, but it is a softer side, right? It's really giving us that patience, that ability to slow down, think, and understand what this person's going through, because sometimes we don't understand what that person may be going through that's right in front of us, right? And so we have to keep that in our mind, and we have to keep that and let them know that, hey, we're here for you. We're going to take that time to, to talk with you and just get you through this. And so when it comes to, those things in our hiring practices, we look at officers who really want to take that time and that ability to do it. We don't want officers to just respond. We want officers to be there and actually stay and give a good response. To take that time to listen, to take that time to think, and we give them the resources. Our officers are resource heavy. That's one of the things we want to make sure that they have, is so many resources. We work with our wellness center. We work with the BIT team, the student affairs, all different facets of the university to make sure our students have that ability to connect with somebody on campus, off campus, whatever it may be. When they go home, we want them to know that, hey, when you go to Kansas City, when you go to Chicago, we have somebody that can connect you to, so that way you can get that help. And so we want to make sure our officers are resource heavy and that they're getting the training that they need. Training with diversity and inclusion. Dr. Malik comes in our office and he holds a training with us. Annually, we have a week-long training where all of our officers go through and get all their CEUs, whatever annual trainings that they may need. They go through, they get them. Dr. Malik comes in, talks about microaggressions, bias, and all those other things. And like I said, you're talking about an area where, it's a majority white community. And so some of those things that, they often don't hear, and some of those those things, especially from somebody, like Dr. Malik, they don't hear those things, they don't get this training often. When I first came here, I had a student who never seen a black person before, and that just blew my mind. And so when those trainings come about, you're thinking in the back of your mind, man, this is crazy. Like, I wonder how this is affecting them as much as it's affecting me. You know, I get something out of everything. You know, I'm always going to learn something no matter what. You know, I can go to a history lesson on African American history, and I'm still going to get something out of it no matter what, because I take everything to heart, and that's just who I am. And then transparency. One of the biggest things that we have on our plate right now is going through accreditation phase for our law enforcement. It's a really big phase. Not a lot of law enforcement agencies are actually accredited, and that's one of the things that we're taking to hold our transparency to effect. Our general orders. We're thinking about creating a general order review board. So every summer we look through our policies and general orders and our procedures to see what we can do, what we need to do to change. And every year we do change something. And so what we're looking at is creating a board to say, hey, come in, check this out, check out our policies, check our procedures, and then just let us know, give us feedback. You know, we seek feedback from you guys. You know Chief Green, that's just one of his biggest things. He loves a challenge, and we've all accepted that challenge with him, and he challenges us every day. And then some of the initiatives. Just recently, we actually, a couple years ago, I wrote a grant for an actual counselor position to be embedded into our department. That wasn't successful, but we were approached by a third-party agency to have that, and that's something that we're still working on, because as you can see, some of these agencies now, you know, they're having, you know, that the counselors within the department, as I talked about, the Nottoway County Sheriff's Office having that joint counselor position. We want to have that same thing. You know, so that way it's not just us. People get turned off really quickly when they see, you know, a badge, a gun, and we're trying to change that stigma. But at the same time, it's going to take more than just us. You know, it's going to take you guys. It's going to take, you know, our training. It's going to take our ability to accept the challenges. It's going to take our ability to accept the change that we have to instill within ourselves. And so those are some of the biggest things that we got going with the BIT team, the task force with the 4th Circuit. That's really going to change some things around here, I think. It's going to be really good for us. And then one of our biggest things is just learning from you guys. I learn every day from those when we go to these mental health challenges, just the ways of coping. You know, you guys are brave, more than you know. I know that sometimes it's your lowest point, and it's the lowest moment in your life at that time. But the way I see you guys grind every day and keep going, I mean, that's what makes me feel better. That's what gets me through, you know, those long days at times. And I want you guys to just know that you guys you're rocking it, and just keep going. I'll end with that. I'll just say, just keep supporting us, and just keep knowing that we're going to try to keep doing the right things. And any feedback, any questions you guys may have, always know that our doors is open. That's one thing that we want you guys to know, that you guys can come in anytime. Do you guys have any questions for me? Yes, ma'am. Yep. Great question. Yes, it's a free training. It is geared more toward law enforcement for one of those things right now. The aspect that kind of how I like to put it is, you think of Ms. Peltz, right? She has, how much schooling did you have to have before you counseling? And then so us as law enforcement, we get 40 hours of training, which is a lot for us, you know? And so we're called out right then and there. And so what CIT training is just giving us that ability to, you know, to get the experts in there, but at the same time trying to de-escalate that situation. We do have some partners in there who aren't first responders. We've had some city workers come in to take the training. But once you get in there, you'll really see that it's really law enforcement geared towards. But if that's something you may need, like I said, just give me your contact information. I'll see what I can find you, because that is one of the biggest things. Yeah.
And so the learning experience is interrupted, the teacher goes home crying, the kid goes home crying, and the principal's shaking their heads and I don't know what to do. And I come in and I
And see, that's the new challenge now. See, when we first started, just like Monica mentioned, who knows when this whole, deal of high mental health came about. But when I first started, I remember I probably went on 2 or 3 just mental health calls within a year of me starting. That's it. Now every day, I mean, that's just a day per officer that we get that. It's constantly, it's all the time. And it's one of those things where we say maybe it's not bad, maybe it's good because people are reporting it more, people are understanding, that I'm having, this issue, there's something's coming about, and so now we're seeing that in adolescents, more younger youth, and so that's the big issue now is coming, saying, hey, we have this issue going on, what's out there for us to help students and kids younger age. And so that's one thing we're working on. We actually do have a youth CIT training as well that we're working on, and that may be something more geared towards you as well that we can reach out to you for. Yes, ma'am, please do.
I mean, if there's something, because I work in 43 schools, if we can get something else to disclose.
Totally agree. Yep, agreed.
Statewide, but that's just
Yes, ma'am, agreed. Please do. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, sorry.
How can I get more men, specifically more black men, involved in mental health?
That's hard. It's a good question. No, I really don't. I'm gonna be honest about that because it took me a while, and there's things that I said up here that I'm probably not. Like I said, I probably won't even tell my girlfriend, that hey, I went up there and said that, because yeah, sure, that's just me. That's how I feel. But when it comes to those things, and especially since they're in a new area, and they may want to up their dominance, make it seem like they're tougher now because they're not home, and so they're away from something that may have put them at a lower point. And it's kind of like changing their life when they're here. And so why would they go back to wanting to, show that weakness point in their life? Does that make sense? And so it's really hard to do that. And like I said, I don't really have an answer for that, to be honest. It's because I know for sure I may not be 100% there, if that makes sense. Maybe starting in the home, just reaching out to parents or the close friends, spouses, whatever it may be. Finding what connects them, getting them in the room around sports and just talking with them. Those Big Brothers Big Sister program, I was a part of that when I was a kid, and that really helped a lot as far as being able to get around male figure. Sports was a big thing for me, and so just like you said, with working out, those things, eating right and diet, that can be very, very, very helpful as well. Just getting them in the area to where they feel comfortable and not just kind of saying, hey, you guys got to get here, you got to do this, you got to do that, because that's where defense guards goes up for anybody, right? Anything else? If you guys want to talk about dietetics, you can reach out to me too. No, I'm just joking. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
So Anthony, he works out at the same gym as me as well, so he's great. We are going to take a quick 10-minute break right now. So you can go look at the artwork, you can maybe drop in on meditation, yoga, grab a snack. We've got all our resource material that's on the back table there on the left side as you're going out. And we have t-shirts, $10. Any of the money that we make from those is going to the North Star Advocacy Center. So thank you, and see you back here in about 10 minutes. anyone who has been through a traumatic event can experience PTSD. However, it is a very prevalent issue with our military veterans and those serving as first responders. Our next speaker is a veteran and a KCPD officer who has devoted his life to helping people heal from their traumatic experiences. So Nathan Majors did 2 combat tours to Iraq, including the initial invasion. He's been a police officer for KCPD since 2005. He started his own healing journey in 2014. He says it's been one heck of a long, bumpy road, but totally worth living. He's now the program director for The Battle Within and gets the pleasure of helping other veterans and first responders kickstart their new life, including my husband. So, Nate Majors, come on up.
Whew. Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Majors. Before I get started too far, just know that I have a stutter. I'm totally solid with it. I've lived with it for 39 years now. Feel free to giggle whenever I start it. Just know that if you do, you gotta buy me a beer after this is all over. Fair? All right. Can everyone hear me? Because Mike's and I don't get along. Yeah, I joined the Marine Corps in 2001. Served there until 2005 when I got out. I had two tours over the pond. Had a lot of good times there. I mean, that's one of the things that a lot of folks don't talk about when we talk about going to war. There's a lot of stuff there that happens that is freaking fun. There's also a lot of stuff that happens there, as you all know, that is awful. I lost a whole bunch of guys and gals over there. I came home after my second tour and got out very shortly thereafter. And when I did that, I have a lot of survivor's guilt over the fact that a whole bunch of my people that I trained, that were my people, went over there and I wasn't there. And a lot of them did not come home. And I'll be frank with you, that gutted me on a level that I didn't realize was actually a thing. So in 2005, I joined the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. I've been with them for about 15 and a half years now. So one of the things I say is I've been there long enough to know what I'm doing and not long enough to know all of it. So let me just tell you a little bit about my journey. When I was in the Marine Corps and through training with KCPD and being a male, when you deal with hard stuff, also forgive me if I slip up and swear, I'm very sorry. When you're dealing with stuff and it's ugly and nasty and terrifying to look at, you're told to stuff it because it makes you look weak, it makes you look pathetic, it makes you look like you can't handle business. So when I would check on my buddies and say, hey man, you good? Their response is always, yeah, I'm good. And then same back to me. Coming as far as I am, as far as I've come now, what I realized I was doing back then was asking them if they could still function. Are you bleeding? Are you broken? Can you handle business? The problem with that is that it was killing me. I didn't know it. The things that I thought were good were being hard, being cold, being numb, being able to go on a scene where, I'll just be honest, this past week was hard. We had a guy that we were trying to pull out of a car while he was burning to death until he stopped screaming. because he was trapped. Dealing with things like that on a day-to-day basis. Being able to function afterwards and then make a joke about it, and then go eat a sandwich. I thought that was a good thing. I thought that made me a better human being, a better man, a better leader. Well, I'm here to tell you now that that is complete BS. I ended up sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at my gun, wondering, I wonder what would happen if I did this. Things that stopped me was knowing that my kids would be the ones to find me. And that I can't let happen. So another guy that I know went through a program much like what we do now. And he kept telling me, man, hey dude, this is it, this is it, this is it. And I looked at him and said, no dude, that's some hippy-dippy BS, and I ain't doing it. Also, I don't need it, because I really didn't see it. I did not realize how affected I had been. That is because it has been normalized in our society to just push through, because the job's got to be done. And I finally went through a program because I wanted this dude to shut up and stop asking me to go. Turns out it's one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself. Now, when I say for myself, I am including my family, my friends, my children, my dogs, my coworkers, because I am a different man now. I have learned and embraced that being vulnerable is a freaking superpower. Being vulnerable and being okay with approaching another guy who may tell me, go screw yourself. But my job is to plant the seed. That's it. What I've learned is that through this process of being mindful, being open and being raw with other human beings has opened up doors for me. It's opened up doors for the society that I live in every single day. Our program has put approximately 13% of all 1,300 police officers in my city. About 13% of all those officers have come through our program at no charge to them. We also don't take money from any police department or whatever, so that that people can't come to us and say, hey, what did Joe Schmo say on day 2 of your program? People, warriors, have a tendency to not trust the people that they work for. And having an outlet for people to come and I'm gonna change my direction a little bit. Here's why it worked for me. People just like me that have been through the same things, that have seen the death, the destruction, that have had people take their own lives, people that struggle at home because I have to deal with this thing at work and now it's affecting me at home and how I deal with my kids. It works because, this program works because it's people just like me that are one step past where I was. So it's not this person that doesn't get it, right? The stigma is changing. And I want to thank you, man, because I know how hard it is to just be open like this. I get it, I do. With the changes that we have with KCPD alone, right? It is not unusual now for us to show up on a scene and give people a hug. It's not unusual for us to walk up to another officer that's hurting and say, hey man, you good? And mean it. And when you get the standard carbon copy answer, you push back on it. Hey man, you good? Yeah man, I'm good. I kind of don't believe you. That opens up so many avenues. So what we do is a 5-day program that, for free, allows veterans and first responders, and to be clear, first responders is a fairly broad subject. So doctors, nurses, dispatchers, our Department of Corrections folks, medics, fire, right? What we've learned in having these hard people come through is that they're the ones that believe that they have to do for others all the time. And our challenge is when you're on an airplane and you lose cabin pressure and the stupid dangly things fall down in front of your face, whose mask are you supposed to put on first? Yours. Why? Because if you pass out, you can't help them. And to be frank, if you try and help them at your not best, you're doing them a disservice. So what we do is offer the opportunity and give these people that don't have it very often the permission to sit in a space and just have that be a space where they can do whatever they need without judgment, knowing that it's not going to get back to anybody. I like your circle thing. One of the things that we use is if I'm walking along and I fall down and I break my arm and I go to the doctor, what's the doctor going to put on my arm? A cast, right? Here's the question, does the cast heal me? No, the cast holds the space for me to heal me. And that's what I want you all to get. Having the permission to understand that I am my own hero. I am the reason that I will heal, and that makes me responsible for it. That empowers others to have the exact same experience. Our secret mission within our organization is to change the world. But we know that we change the world by changing ourselves. I can't change any of you, and I promise you, you can't change me. But what I can do is change me. And when I do that, my environment will change. My family changes. My society changes. Our jobs change. When our jobs change, our culture changes. Our state changes, our country changes, the world changes. One life at a time. It is a long, long, bumpy road. And there's a lot of tears on that road. Because it's freaking hard. But the people that we serve are worth it. And I want you to understand that you're part of that. So, in closing, changing the world happens very, very slowly, but there's nothing in this world that happens fast that is worth it. Nothing. So thank you for being a part of being willing to listen. Because when you are that cast, she's right, you don't have to say anything. You just have to be there at a human level and say, yeah, I get it. That sucks. Thank you guys so much. Do any of you have questions for me? Thank you guys.
almost made me cry. So, we're gonna switch it up real quick. Thank you, Nate, so much for coming. I heard Mindy Walker, who works for Missouri State Teachers Association, talking earlier, and it's a perfect segue into our next speaker about how many mental health problems start when we're very young. And the first people to notice those issues a lot of the time are our elementary teachers. Dr. Rebecca Moore is training our future teachers to become trauma-informed by first addressing their own trauma. She's going to speak to us about how she has implemented Project Imagine with her students. So please welcome Dr. Moore.
All right, good afternoon. See some of my early childhood students over here. Okay, like Monica said, I am Rebecca Moore and been an early childhood professor here since 2018. My background really came from Southeast Missouri State University, where I was there for 13 years, and started my work in trauma, working with young children and adults who had experienced trauma. Back in, about 5 years ago, I went to a conference, a trauma conference, and founded the work of Diane Maroney with the Imagine Project. Really became passionate about her work and working with children, early childhood children specifically, and their trauma, and how to really bring light to children who experience adverse childhood experiences. So her work is really done K through 12. But my work as an early childhood professional at a higher education university level, I tasked myself to be able to use this project with my students, with my college students. So 2 years ago, I implemented this project with them, and it has been life-changing for our students. I think I've collected over 100 Imagine stories. What the Imagine story really is it's an expressive writing tool for you to really dive deep, to become vulnerable, like our presenters had talked about prior to me. Opening up, really talking about their past traumas. Helping teachers become trauma-informed is really important. We can't work with our youngest learners without dealing with our own traumas and understanding how to positively cope with that before we hear our little ones talking or struggling with their own traumas. So the project, Diane's goal for this year is to reach 1 million children. Our work with adult learners now is becoming very popular. I'll just preface by saying that she is doing a documentary this year on the Imagine Project, and I have been asked and chosen to be part of that film. So that's exciting with our work at Northwest. But it has really decreased suicides and allowed a platform for students to share their traumas. Speaking with some of our students who have went through the project, they're raw stories. And I'm gonna be honest, as I read them and I grade them, and it takes me a long time to get through them. Because I then start feeling and just the emotion and the perseverance and the grit that our students have just to be sitting in the classroom with their own personal traumas. So a lot of times as teachers, we go out and we think we need to change and do and be there for our little ones, but we forget about our own mental health as teachers. And so this really brings light to their own traumas and that they are facing, to be able to empower, build resilience and mindfulness to help their future students. So, click here. Okay, so there are the Imagine Story, Imagine Journal. There are 7 steps that I walk the students through as we go through. I give them a disclaimer from the beginning that this is going to bring up raw material. This is going to bring up emotion. This is going to bring up things that are yucky that we don't want to deal with. But we know that we can't be effective teachers until we face and confront our own traumas. So there's tissues, there's lots of crying, there's lots of hugging, it's just an intimate class period that we have. Dr. Seipel has been in on this project for the last 2 years as well. So the first step in the Imagine Project journal is to celebrate. So really writing down things to celebrate about their life, that they're proud of, what they love about their life, and then adding those emotions to what they're proud of, to what they want to celebrate. So that's the first step. The second step is reflecting. So really naming an experience that has come with those emotions, naming those emotions that have been challenging in their lives, and how does that really play? So really trying to add those emotions into celebrating and then reflecting. The third step is the imagine part, is choosing a challenging experience in their life. It could be something, it doesn't necessarily have to be trauma. Some dig and they don't have a lot of trauma. So it's just something to really reflect on and to write about. So this is telling this story now of that experience with each sentence starting with the word imagine, imagining for their life. So this is they go from the first memory and then they continue to go through their story with the word starting, with their sentences starting with imagine. The step 4 is their possibilities. Now it's time to start imagining new possibilities. So turning that challenging experience into a possibility of resilience, of mindfulness, of being vulnerable. Step 5 is I statements. So we really train our teachers to work with I statements. I can, I am, I will. Building that positive light into a challenging situation. So owning their dreams by transforming their imagined stories into their own personal dreams and stories. And then, again, connecting those emotions to that. Step 6 is doing. So naming 3 things that they need to do to make those dreams come true. Make that potential story turn around. And then 7, we end it with a 30-day gratitude challenge. So every day for 30 days, they write 3 things they want to imagine for their life, their 3 things they're grateful for, and then do 1 act of kindness. So it's really empowering them and giving them resilience to kind of bounce back and be vulnerable to talk about those experiences, but yet give back too. Channeling that negativity or those emotions or that depression or anxiety into more of a positive light. So this is a stair-stepped journal process, journal story, and many of which have only first shared their stories by writing their imagined stories. So they had not told anyone, they have not mentioned anything, but we allowed that platform for them to share, to open up, to be vulnerable. That wouldn't have happened had we not built relationships with our students first, and they trusted us to share their stories with. So we've had students who have, numerous students who have been raped, and the first time that they've talked about it is through their imagined story. We've had some that have been abused and neglected as children, never talked about it until their imagined story. We have some whose parents were alcoholics and did terrible things, never talked about it until their imagined stories. So there is a plethora of stories that we have read of our early childhood students in the last 3 years that has been overwhelming, but it has been a positive, overwhelming experience. They didn't realize that they had been covering up or pushing those things down and just saying, I'm okay, I don't need that, I'm good with this, it's my fault, I'm here to help children. But until we work through our own traumas, we can't necessarily help our children. And so many of them, after these stories, some have, once they got their story out, felt like it was a big load off of them. Many have came to my office. We've talked about things. I've walked some of my students over to wellness services. I've sat with some of my students in wellness services. They have reached out to their own hometown counselors, hometown therapists to help deal with some of these things that they've written about. So it has been a positive opportunity for them to reach out into the medical field, the health professionals, and realize that this is not something that I can do alone. And so this opportunity has really allowed them to be vulnerable, open up, get their stories out, and start processing those emotions that they've been covering up for so many years. I have brought one of my students' stories to share, and this is just one of anxiety and depression, something that she had been struggling with for years. So her Imagine story starts with, imagine avoiding certain situations that would potentially make you feel humiliated or embarrassed. Imagine having trouble falling asleep at night or waking up multiple times in the middle of the night. Imagine worrying over the simplest things in life. Imagine not being able to do anything alone because you need someone with you. Imagine stressing out so much over a test or project that you don't even want to go to school. Imagine almost throwing up anytime you get in an argument with friends or boyfriend. Imagine going to a different school as all of your friends and having to meet new people. Imagine constantly worrying about what people think of you. Imagine being self-conscious and struggling talking about certain situations. Imagine having a panic attack and no one understanding what it's really like. Imagine having flashbacks to situations you have tried to forget about. Imagine being scared to go out of your comfort zone and trying new things. Imagine hating change and avoiding it at all cost. Imagine worrying about things months, even years in advance. Imagine constantly being tense and on edge. Imagine feeling like danger and catastrophes are right around the corner. Imagine avoiding everyday situations. Imagine being one of the 40 million adults diagnosed with anxiety and depression. Imagine realizing God has a plan for you. Imagine taking risk and putting yourself out there. Imagine taking a medication that helps you with your illness. Imagine the thought of no one finally judging you. Imagine seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Imagine not letting anxiety and depression win. So that's just one of many stories that they're able to just get out those feelings and really start to cope with their thoughts and inner demons, if you will, if some students have said, in a positive light. So like I said, this is a creative writing experience that we started doing a few years back with our students, and we will continue to do because it's given them a platform to share their trauma. So, any questions?
Have you had any of your students go out with teaching jobs and implement this with their students?
Our first group of students right now, so our students in 2018, the first time that we did this, many of them have been faced with a lot of children who have suffered from trauma. And yes, a few of them have talked about ways to implement this with their kiddos. So they haven't came back and said, look what I found, but they have taken the tools that we've given them to help do their expressive writing. And I would even say some younger ones, they've done in a more journaling, drawing type of way too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because a lot of times they don't even know what they're feeling.
Right.
And to be able to express it, especially in writing,
Mm-hmm.
is difficult. So,
Mm-hmm.
like picture journal.
Yeah, picture journaling. Because I was a preschool teacher when I first started my career, and they had picture journals that they knew that was kind of like their safe place that they would go to. And I mean, many represented their emotions and feelings through their pictures. And then when I would ask about their pictures, I would document what they were saying in their pictures. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead.
So when you have students who have to feel more traumatic experiences that you read about in their work, do you guys have some kind of action plan that you take them afterwards to
So, like I said, a lot of them, like when I'm when I'm reading their stories and I'm giving lots of feedback, I'll be like, come schedule an appointment with me. We'll talk about this further, And I really support them and encourage them and, praise them for just opening up and really like getting that out there. One student actually, she's getting ready to graduate, and she came and gave me a card last week, and it was her last advising appointment, and in her card she said, I have been able to open up to my parents, to my brothers, to a mental health counselor at her home. So it's really, and the Wellness Center has me, I have them on like speed dial. I'm like, I'm gonna walk a student to, and so then not only do I help them get there, but I also follow up with them regularly. I've had a lot of students that I will meet with, like do regular check-ins weekly, whether that's on the phone or whether that's they come to my office. So not only am I giving them like, hey, let's go to the wellness center, or hey, let's do this or do that, I'm really trying to stay connected and with them each week. Because it is, we're giving them a platform and they're trusting us with their story, then it's our job to continue to follow up with them. So like I said, many of them went to wellness services and are still in counseling wellness services to help kind of cope with those traumatic events. Yes. I have not yet. Right. And they have went through the mandatory reporting training, went through I've actually helped a student 2 summers ago who was at a child care center and there was some sexual assault happening. And that's actually what she wrote her Imagine story on. But I had helped her that summer kind of go through all the steps and protocol. She had advocated for this little girl, and from a child care professional that was in the classroom as her. And with her advocating her reporting, and it shut down 3 centers with one of our students, having gone through the mandatory reporting training, having gone through all of the steps of what to do, advocating, and that course case is still going on, and that's 2 years later. So,
Well, then another thing I hate to admit this, but I've been doing this for 19 years and I've seen it. There are some school districts who really don't want the trouble.
oh yeah.
With
And we advise to our teachers, yes, that is,
It is your responsibility.
absolutely.
And if you don't do it, then you are in violation of the law. So great ideas, I just, you're gonna have to be very strong.
Yep.
Because the emotional toll that it takes on you, and then possibly the professional toll that it's gonna take.
And this student, we had just went over the mandated reporter training and all of that, and she was actually reporting against the director's son. And so when she had taken it to the director kind of pushed some things under the rug, and she was like, what do I do? And, I tell, you have to go against power sometimes, and sometimes that means losing your job. In this case, that's what happened. But like I said, she stopped that abuse from happening to however many other children by advocating and reporting. So yeah.
And
So-
I mean, if you guys end up teaching in the Northwest area,
Yeah.
I probably would be the person that you would talk to. And please do call me, because I can't help if I don't know what's happening, and it shouldn't happen. But
Right.
it is a very real.
Yes. There is an informative, like, 1-pager back in the back on the Imagine project as well. If anybody wants to pick that up, that might be a good resource for you, Mindy, too. So, all right, thank you.
I like this last one, the step 7, the gratefulness for 30 days. You can actually change your brain functioning by writing down 3 things you're grateful for every day. So if you guys want to work on that 40% of improving your mental health, just write down 3 things you're grateful for each day for 30 days, and you will be amazed at how much better you feel. Okay, so when I started here, which was a little over 2 years ago, the student group that focused on mental health education, it was called To Write Love on Her Arms, or TWALA. Great group, but had dwindled down to about 3 people. The name I thought was very ambiguous. I also thought that it kind of excluded men because it's To Write Love on Her Arms. So I wanted to do something that would get more people, more students involved in being mental health advocates. Kayla Vertreese was the president of TWALA. She and I talked and we came up with Active Minds, which is a national organization, works on campuses across the country. It has been amazing here. We've had great success with people here on campus getting involved in it. They have done a lot on campus. I'll let her talk to you about it. Kayla is a true friend. I love her with all of my heart, and I didn't mean to make you cry, and I didn't want to cry myself. She's amazing. She's incredibly passionate about mental health. She helped me become even more passionate than I was before about social justice. Everyone here, you are going to learn about Kayla down the road. She's going to do big things in this world, and I can't wait to see it. So, Kayla, come on up.
Okay. My heart's beating a little bit, but we'll just ignore that for today. So hi everyone, like Monica said, my name is Kayla Vertreese. I am a senior this year at Northwest Missouri State. I don't know why I'm saying the full name, you guys know where we're at. I am a human services major with a minor in psychology. And as she mentioned, I am president and founder of Active Minds at Northwest Missouri State University. Here I am saying it again. And so I'm here today to tell you guys a little bit more about us, our journey, and I wanted to start off with a short, here's a clicker, a short 1-minute video, and then I'll get into the talking part. So I don't know if I should bend down. I'm just gonna keep standing because there's.
Hey, has this ever happened to you? Maybe a friend, teammate, coworker, loved one says something like, "I've been having a hard time lately. I've been feeling really anxious. I'm overwhelmed." If it sounds like more than a bad day, it probably is. So, what could you do? Consider this an opening to start a conversation with your friend. Talk and listen using VAR. Validate, appreciate, refer. VAR. An easy way to let someone know it's okay to not be okay, and you are not alone.
Okay, so that was just a quick video on the VAR model that Active Minds has. I felt like it really embodies a snapshot of the work that we do with Active Minds, so that's why I showed it today. Here, most of you who have been here the entire time have heard a theme of being willing to listen as a part of mental health awareness and increasing the conversations around mental health awareness. And so this model was actually created by an Active Minds member who's obviously now an alumni, and Active Minds has adopted it as their own model to use to give students a tool on their campuses and their schools on how to navigate these conversations better. Because kind of like it talked about in the video, kind of like we've heard here today, for a lot of people, your first point of contact when you're addressing mental health struggles or you're going through a tough time is going to be your friends, your family, you know, a teacher, a trusted adult, something like that. It's typically not a mental health professional, and obviously most people aren't mental health professionals. And so this provides a tool on how to navigate those conversations easier, and not necessarily being a professional to them, but being someone that's willing to listen, and then building tools that provide people with the knowledge about resources that are available, and then being able to refer people to professional help if needed. So Active Minds, like Monica mentioned, is a nonprofit organization. Its national office is based out of Washington, D.C. It was founded in 2003 by Allison Malman, whose brother Brian died by suicide in 2000. Currently today, there are over 550 chapters all across our nation. I think that number actually is now closer to almost 800. And we have 9 chapters on college campuses all across in Missouri, and then 1 chapter in of a high school in Missouri as well. So they are in college campuses, on college campuses and high school campuses, and are doing amazing work all across the nation. And so I was actually lucky enough last year to attend the national conference with Monica and Ben Moran, our graduate assistant for wellness services, and it was the most amazing experience. And although it was virtual this year due to COVID, we're hoping that once it goes back in person, we'll be able to send more members, because you really can't put it into words, the experience. Getting to be surrounded by a multitude of other students who hold the same passions around mental health, who are making such strides in their communities all across the nation, being able to connect with them, seeing the work that organizations are doing. It's a very unique experience, and Active Minds is doing amazing work. So the motto for Active Minds is to change a conversation about mental health, and the idea is to break the stigma and again provide students with tools needed to navigate mental health struggles. So with the support of Monica, I founded Active Minds at Northwest in October of 2019. So it has been around about a year and a half. Timing is kind of weird with COVID shutdowns and all of that, but it's been about a year and a half so far that we've been on campus, going on 2 years. Okay, so there's a lot of pictures on this slide. It can be overwhelming, but I had a hard time picking and choosing, and I just wanted to basically put everything. So as Active Minds at Northwest Missouri State University, we really want to lead the action of bringing awareness on mental health and ending the stigma around it on our campus and in our community. Our long-term goal is to improve the mental health resources we have on our campus and community through fundraising, advocacy, and exploring and challenging campus policy. We also hold fun and educational events and meetings around the topic of mental health, and just to help students build connections and again break that stigma by helping them break down some of the myths that surround mental illnesses. So on these slides, you can see a few of the things that we've accomplished during our time as a chapter here at Northwest. Again, it's been about a year and a half, going on 2 years. So we do campaigns, awareness events, and meetings. And so I'll touch on the campaigns first. So a lot of people are aware of the Green Bandana Project that we launched last semester. The Green Bandana Project was basically, it's a project that raises awareness on mental health, and it provides resources more spread out across our campus. So a lot of more students, faculty, staff members have those resources on hand. So if they know someone that's struggling with mental illness, or they themselves are, they have more access to those resources and where to reach out to if needed. And it's also a sign of solidarity. So you get these green bandanas, you wear them on your backpack, on your person. We had faculty and staff put them on their door. Sorry, let me slow down. I get really fast when I'm nervous. But we have them put them on a door, and it's a sign of solidarity to show I support you. You know, I live with a mental illness. I know someone who lives with mental illness, or I'm an advocate for mental illness. So that was a really great project that we have. We have some green bandanas back there for this event. You can grab one for free if you'd like. They're usually only $1, but we use that money to fund different events, send it to the national chapters, or the national organization to create more resources for students. But you can grab grab one before you leave if you would like, and wear it on your backpack or wherever you would like to display it as a sign of support. And we also have the resource cards available as well for you guys. Then we also have the Your Voice is Your Power campaign that they launched this year. And right now we're actively working on the Your Voice in the Classroom campaign. And so what that campaign is, it's a campaign where we are working to get mental health resources implemented and required on syllabi in the classroom. So the Your Voice in the Classroom, or Your Voice is Your Power campaign was started by Active Minds this year to kind of help uplift and provide more accessible resources to BIPOC students, Black, Indigenous, people of color. And so we are really trying to push forward that initiative. Again, it's a idea of trying to spread the amount of areas, spread the platforms that we have those mental health resources available, so that when students are in a crisis, or faculty or staff or anyone in the community is in a crisis, they have a multitude of ways to access those resources and know where to reach out to, rather than having it in just one specific place that while they're in their crisis they're trying to remember where it's at. So that's kind of the idea behind that. And then another one that we helped influence was getting the crisis suicide prevention lifeline on the back of student ID cards. So most, if not all, new students this year received those new IDs with the crisis prevention lifeline on the back of the Bearcat ID cards. And in the coming years, as new students come, they will all receive those new IDs. So the last big one that we did was over the summer. We kind of had to get creative, obviously, with all the shutdowns and not being on campus. So Active Minds launched a Here For You campaign, and similar to kind of the theme of really listening to people and creating that space for people to just be vulnerable. The idea was to ask people, how are you really doing? And really get them that opportunity to open up to you and check in on one another, especially when we are so isolated and everything like that. So we held a campaign on that. That's at the bottom right corner where everyone is holding up the signs. It says, break the silence, break the stigma. Active Minds is it's okay not to be okay. Active Minds is here for you. So those are some of the campaigns that we're doing and that we've done. We've also done awareness events. So we did the NAMI Walk, National Alliance for Mental Illnesses, I think is the abbreviation. And so we raised awareness on that, and that's at the bottom right corner. So we are all held up different signs of things that we wrote on how we support mental health. We created a college self-care survival guide to give students tips on how to take care of their mental health. Last semester, it was a rough semester returning, still not normal, and so a lot of students were struggling, so we wanted to kind of provide that as another resource again. And on the last page, you'll find a long list of resources that students can reach out to as well. I think the QR code is back on that table, but if not, you can always reach out to me and I can get you that information. And then we also try and participate in the homecoming parade. We've done it twice so far in our time being here, and we hold up different signs that promote mental health. So then in terms of our meetings and events, this semester in specific, we held both in-person and virtual options to make it inclusive for everyone, for those who aren't comfortable attending, or just to get as many people as we can attending our meetings. We cover different mental health topics. We do fun games, things like that. And then we've also co-hosted a lot of different events like Speed Connections, which you'll see that at the top right there. That was obviously before COVID. None of us are wearing masks. We have held movie night discussions, so we'll watch a movie on a topic of mental health of some sort and then have a discussion afterwards, trivia nights, things like that. So lots of great work that our chapter has done and I know will continue to do. In this short time as a chapter so far, we continue to grow in our membership and our reach on campus. And so while graduating this semester means I obviously won't get to continue working on the ground with this chapter here, I'm excited to see what's in store for our future because I know we've got so many amazing leaders and within the organization that will continue to push forward our mission. So that's a little bit about Active Mind. And then I just wanted to touch a little bit on my journey because you're probably wondering, how did she get there? So another recurring theme that we've seen a lot today is the theme of self-empowerment. And I hold that near and dear to my heart because for a while now, or for a while in my life, I thought counseling was going to be my holy grail, if you will. It was going to be my 100% solution on, I was going to find a counselor and they were going to tell me how to fix my life, and that was it. And then all my problems would go away. I had a reality check that that's not really how it works. While counseling is great, I still see a counselor. There's a lot of layers that come with mental health and navigating through your mental health journey. So my own journey with mental health is why I became so passionate about this work. Mental health was not a new concept for me coming to college. I had been to counseling many times before. I struggled with depression, self-harm, anxiety in high school, but I was lucky enough to have parents who supported me and always got me the help, or supportive of me getting the help that I needed when I was struggling. But when I got to college, I was still seeking out those resources. I wasn't shy to seeking out the resources that I needed to continue to support my mental health needs. I quickly realized that that's not the case for everyone, unfortunately. So my official diagnosis, if you will, are I live with major depressive disorder and general anxiety. And so for me, this means that when I get down, it's really hard to get back. So I back up. So I really have to stay on top of my mental health and make sure that I'm taking care of myself. And so what helps for me is counseling, daily mindfulness practice, meditation, and just overall, and this is something that I've been working on a lot, giving myself permission to take time off and recharge. I've really gone by the quote, if you do not make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. And for those who know my personal story more intimately, you know that really reigns to be true. So my story isn't unique, but I am one of the lucky ones. Like I mentioned before, not everyone has that same experience of having supportive parents who are willing to reach out, or having resources back in high school, elementary school, middle school, that the way that I did before coming to college. And so when getting to college, most of the students I knew, they know about the Wellness Center and counseling and things like that, but they don't know much else outside of that. They don't know about the self-help options. They don't know about the wellness events, or like the VAR video emphasize on how to navigate uncomfortable conversations surrounding mental health and having those conversations with their friends. And for me, I found that to be something that's really helpful, just having that validating conversation of knowing that I'm not the only one going through it. So this is kind of why I wanted to build a mental health awareness organization here on campus. First and foremost, obviously, to prevent other students from going through some of the same things that I went through, especially my freshman year of college. I was hospitalized for mental health concerns, and I owe a lot of that to believing, again, that counseling was my only way of healing. And so I believe what really created monumental change in my own mental health journey was through the self-help tools and the internal reflection on my own, and being able to, at times, while still going and counseling and having that be a support, doing that work on my own as well outside of it, and being able to go at my own pace and not feel as rushed to get everything out in a session, but being able to, when I am using my self-help tools, to take a step back and recognize when things are more triggering to me and sit back and sit with that emotion and kind of identify the whys behind it. But I also wanted to build a mental health awareness organization to create a platform to increase advertisement and awareness, like I've mentioned before, on more of the resources that students have in a way that's more direct to students. As we know, students listen to students. As much as we like to believe that we're reading every single email that's sent out to the university, by the university and things like that, they're not. So a good way to reach out is to have students directly saying, hey, go to this event, hey, this is available to you, and things like that. So that was one of the ideas, and the other idea was to create a platform where we can identify areas that mental health resources are lacking and build a platform to advocate for better ones. Because students are the voices, students influence change on this campus, and I do believe that the university listens to students and what we have to say and what we want. It's just a matter of having that platform to come together, organize in a way that we can decide what we really want and what we need, and then bringing it to the university. And so I felt like a mental health awareness organization was a perfect platform for that. It's also a community, again, where students can connect with other students who might have similar experiences in their mental health journeys, or who also have a passion for mental health. So although awareness has improved, there's still much work to be done. And so my mission as a mental health advocate has always been to build a more proactive approach towards taking care of your mental health. And I really believe that too many lives have been lost because we don't care enough until it's too late. We need to raise awareness on the help that individuals have before it's too late. We need to care about them before it's too late. We need to support people before it's too late. We need to tell people we love them before it's too late. And we need to know that it's never too early to talk about mental health, but it can be too late. So we need to help. So my goal, as I continue to be a mental health advocate throughout the rest of my time here at Northwest, and as I continue on, is to help influence the implementation of mental health education as a requirement for schools. And so I really liked the Imagine project that they were talking about earlier, because I think this is such an important resource in building people with the tools that they have early on, so then we can navigate life stressors as they go on, because life doesn't get easier, we just have to get better at navigating through it. So whether you live with a mental illness or not, everyone has mental health, and everyone's mental health not only deserves, but it requires care, attention, exercise, even professional support from time to time, just like our physical bodies do. So schools are requiring 30 minutes of exercise every day, teaching us about our bodies. So we need to teach about our brains and how to take care of them. So that's a little bit about my journey. And then to close, I just wanted to encourage you all to follow our social medias. You can keep up to date with everything that we're doing through there. We also have more information in the back. And then my final slide is the slide that I show at the end of all of our meetings, so students can, take a picture of it if they need. And it also, again, it's kind of a recurring theme, familiarizing students with the resources we have. So as you can see, we added a visual so students know, hey, this is UPB at the top, this is the Wellness Center in the middle, and this is the Mosaic Hospital here in town. So that's all I got. If anyone has any questions, let me know. If not, that's it. Thank you.
Dr. Matt Baker, Vice President of Student Affairs, champion for promoting wellness on campus, to say some closing words. And when he's done, I have just a couple quick little housekeeping things.
Okay, I swear I'll be fast, because I know I'm the last thing before you get to go. At first, when Monica asked me to speak, she just asked if I would say, thanks for coming, thanks for being a part of this, but I do feel compelled after listening to several of our stories just to tell a little bit of my own story. And I've recognized today that mental health is a huge spectrum, right? I've had a bad day, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I don't know what to do, it's there. And it's like severe diagnosis, it's severe trauma. And so it's this gigantic chasm of what is mental health. And the thing that I'm reminded of today is everybody has a story. Mr. Major, I can't remember his rank, Mr. Major talked about trauma and what he was going to do. Anthony talked about our law enforcement. All our teachers have talked about the trauma they've seen. So whatever your story is, it doesn't have to be the most traumatic thing in the world. There is no corner on the market for, well, my story is not that bad, I really don't need help. If you're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. If you've got depression, you've got depression. It doesn't have to be the worst one in the room in order for it to be valuable. So I thought about that a lot today as I was listening. So more information than you ever wanted to know about me. Before I turned 12, I played football, I played soccer, I played basketball, I played baseball, I swam, and I beat up on my brothers and they beat up on me. And then one day I went to 7th grade in early March, and I didn't feel terribly well, and by 5th hour, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my ankles were the size of grapefruits, and they were red. My parents were smart and we had health insurance, so we went to a doctor in Topeka, Kansas, where I grew up, and he's like, I don't know, that's weird. Which is a scary diagnosis when you're a 7th grader, where it's weird. So I'll just shoot to the end of this part of it where about 4 months later, I was diagnosed with not having about 19 fatal diseases, and so I probably had rheumatoid arthritis. At that point, they didn't diagnose rheumatoid arthritis. They just eliminated leukemia and cancer and everything else, so it's probably arthritis. My first prescription for arthritis was 10 500 milligram aspirin a day for 3 years. Fast forward, by 6 months later, I was in the hospital. I was anemic. I had lost 40 pounds. My ankles were the size of grapefruits still. My knees were the size of grapefruits. They looked like toothpicks with oranges on them when you looked at my knees. Over my high school years, my hips, my shoulders, my neck, my wrists, my fingers, my toes, my ankles, every joint stopped working. So if I have to do CPR on you, I'm using my foot, okay? Because my wrist doesn't bend, so I might use my fist. I don't know. We'll figure it out if it gets to that. But Anthony's here. We're fine. So, but what they don't tell you is when your joints quit working and you're a preteen and a teen, your identity gets formed around your disease. Your identity is, I'm broken. I can't play sports. My younger brother's smarter than I am. My older brother's an athlete, and I'm the middle kid who can't walk. So my identity became this whole thing about, I'm broken, I'm damaged, and I just decided that. Everybody was really nice to me because they thought I was going to break, and I thought I was going to break, so I was okay with that. So fast forward, I get to college. My opinion of Matt is he's damaged, he's broken, nobody's ever going to want to marry him, he's not going to have kids. He can't have kids. What if he had a son? He might want to play football. Oh my God, I can't play football. I can't have kids because I can't play football. So my identity going into college was all these things about myself that were that's just horrible. That's just the way life is. What I realized, I went home one summer, talked to 2 friends that I'd known since I was in kindergarten. We were home for the summer. They were both in college. They came back and they said, we're going to go for a hike out at the lake. And I said, well, how long's the hike? They said, about 3 miles. I said, I can't walk that far. They said, why not? I said, because I have arthritis. They said, oh, yeah, we forgot. Okay, let's go to a movie. And that was it. I might cry a little bit, but in that moment, I had an epiphany. The way I looked at myself was not the way they looked at me. Everything I knew about who I was, what I believed to be true, was wrong. It was wrong. Like, wait a minute. So every time somebody gave me a piece of negative feedback, I obsessed about that for days, weeks, months, years. I remembered stuff from 8th grade that I'd said to somebody that wasn't kind, and I was just a horrible person. Fast forward, the way I thought of myself was not the way they thought of me. So I went through a process. I decided to use the scientific method. At least that's what I've decided to call it. What data do I have? So I started taking the positive observations to me with as much fervor as I took the negative critiques of myself. And within about 6 months, I realized, wait a minute. I might actually be a nice person. I might actually be okay. I might actually be somebody of value. I just decided to like myself. I decided to use the evidence and decided to be happy. I'm not always happy. Sometimes I'm cranky. Sometimes I'm beyond stress. Sometimes I need help and support. But I realized my own perception wasn't accurate. And that was a life-changing thing for me. I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but that's what I live with every day. So if you walk with me sometime, come with me between classes. We'll walk from the Union to the ad building when there's a bunch of people walking around. 95% of them will look at my eyes, look at my feet, look at my eyes. They don't even know they do it. I wish I could be like Mr. Major, where you have to buy a beer if you laugh. I'm like, if somebody looks at my eyes, looks at my feet, looks at my eyes, somebody has to buy me a beer. I probably wouldn't make it out of the ad building. My point is, it's okay not to be okay. It's also okay to work through it and figure out what's true in your heart and in your life and in your mind. It's okay if you don't have trauma. It's okay if you don't have depression. It's okay if you're not you're not anxious all the time. It's also okay to just be stressed and become comfortable in your own skin. So a couple of notes I made today, everybody has a story. Your story is not better or worse than anybody else. It's just your story. And if you want to talk to somebody and get help, talk to somebody and get help. Come talk to me and get help. Lieutenant Williams said something that I thought was magical. I think about it all the time. I get something out of everything. He said earlier, I get something out of every interaction I have. That's a decision. It's a decision to learn. It's a decision to agree, disagree. It's a decision. That was good. Exercise, sleep, nutrition, probably the foundation of all well-being. Just start there. Get some sleep. That'll help. If I had my wish for you, it would be comfy in your own skin. I've got a teenage daughter who gets her vaccine in 30 minutes, so I got to go sign her in because she's not 18 yet. If I can get her out of high school comfy in her own skin, I will declare victory. The rest of the world she'll figure out. But like who you are. And then The thing that I've told a couple thousand students in the last 30 years is strong people ask for help. It takes more strength to say, I need help, than it does to pretend you're fine. To walk in and say, I don't know exactly what's wrong, but something's wrong. Can you help me? I am 99% confident somebody will say, yep, I'll help you. The hardest part is saying, I need help. After that, it gets easier and easier. So I think I was supposed to come up and just say, thanks for coming and thanks for being a part of this, but after I was kind of inspired by everything I heard. And the fact that you're here, you're still here 2 hours later is magical. It is about just deciding to help people. I will listen and just listen and refer. And I think we're going to be in great shape. But I do have to echo with Kayla's graduation. I think we're all set about that. You've done an amazing job. So I just want to say that on my way out. So thanks for coming today. And I got to go rescue a first grader and get a senior or junior in high school vaccinated. So have a great day.
All right, well, that was awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you so much. I want to thank the Behavioral Science Association for putting together the art project room. It's amazing. If you haven't been over there yet, it is absolutely amazing. They reached out to our area schools, and then I reached out to Nottoway Holt, where my kids go, and it's amazing. And you get to vote on your favorites, and those kids and even some of our staff members can earn prizes for that. Thanks Active Minds for being Active Minds and being awesome to begin with, and for running the campaign to come up with a new shirt. We have those shirts back there. They're $10, which is pretty much what we paid for them, and we're going to give that money to the North Star Advocacy Group. There's a ton of different handouts on the back table there that have our resources. Grab snacks on your way out, grab a drink, whatever. And finally, thanks to Jeremy Kramer and the Gold Program for providing the refreshments. If you are free Friday, feel free to join another wellness event at 5 p.m. at the Bell Tower right out here. Take Back the Night is an annual event during Sexual Assault Awareness Month where survivors share their stories, and the aim is to shift power to sexual assault awareness and prevention. Check out our social media if you want more details. Otherwise, we hope to see you there. I am always available. My office is downstairs. If anybody ever needs to talk about anything, I will listen. Thank you.